their days dancing around, come on, practicing all the steps for the grand balls they would be attending. When they weren't dancing, they could be found whispering into each other's ears, telling secrets about their boyfriends, giggling, fixing their hair and their dresses and their pants, and having a great time being princesses. Everything was fine until one sad day, their mother, the queen, got sick. She began to cough. She grabbed her forehead and her heart. She felt so weak. The king patted her on her shoulder. "Take it easy, dear," he said. "I'm the king. I'll call the doctor." The king clapped his hands 2 times. "Doctor, doctor, come quickly. My wife is taken ill." The weirdo court doctor rushed down the stairs. He pulled out his stethoscope. He listened to the queen's heartbeat. It was very faint. He could hardly hear it. He said to the queen, "Open up your mouth, stick out your tongue, say ah." The doctor turned to the king and queen. The doctor shook his head sadly. "I'm sorry, your majesties. The queen is very ill. I don't know what's wrong with her, but I think you better keep her calm and quiet. I've got to go back upstairs to my experiments. If you need me, just call." And up the stairs he ran. When the princesses heard how sick their mother was, they began to cry. Come on, girls. Come on, Allison, and cry. They ran over to their mother. They said, "Mother, mother, please get better. We need you." The king said to his daughters, "Back up, girls, back up. Give your mother room to breathe. I need room to think." The king scratched his head. He thought, what am I to do? I can't rule by myself. Suddenly the king had a great idea. "I've got it." He clapped 2 times. "Daughters, come quickly. I have to talk to you." The princesses stood in front of the king. They curtsied to their father. "Yes, father, what is it?" they asked. "Do you need help taking care of mother?" The king shook his head. No, it's not that," he said. "I've decided to choose one of you girls to help me rule while mother is sick. I'm going to be fair about it," he explained. "I want each one of you to bring me a precious gift," he said. "Whoever brings me the most precious gift could be my helper queen. Now I'll give you girls 2 hours to get me the gifts." The princesses walked around scratching their heads, thinking about their father's hobbies and his interests. They all wanted to be the helper queen if they could. They gathered up their gifts in their hands. Take the sword. Your gift's going to be closed up in your hand. They gathered up gifts for the king. And they all were, "Just hold this for me. You don't have to do anything with it, okay?" And finally they were ready to present the gifts to the king. The first princess, Princess Vanessa, curtsied to the king. She handed him a beautiful new sword for battle. The king took the sword. He held it up high so everyone could see it. "Look at my fabulous Thundercat sword," he said. He patted his daughter on her head. And he said, "Thank you, dear. That was a fine gift. Now please wait over here, and I'll let you know if it was the most precious." He put the sword down. He clapped 2 times and said, "Who's next? Who's next?" Well, Princess Anna was not feeling very well that day. The king said, "Anna, what is that in your hand?" He went over to see. He said, "What is that?" Russell said, "Wow, a new crown. Can I have it? Thank you." He took the crown from her. He went back to his place, to his throne. He said, "This is a fabulous, fabulous crown for me. Look at all the jewels in it." He put it down with the sword. He said, "Thank you, Anna. I hope you feel better." "Who's next?" He clapped 2 times. Princess Karen ran in. She curtsied to the king. She said, "Here, father, I have a brand new shield for you." The king admired the shield. He patted Princess Karen on her head and said, "Thank you, dear. I'll keep this with my other things. I'll let you know if it's the most precious gift." "Who is next?" he said. Princess Allison stood in front of the king. She curtsied to the king. She held out her hands, but they were closed up. The gift was inside her closed up hands. King Russell said, "A precious gift?" he said. Russell, move your mouth. "What could it be?" "It must be a precious jewel, a diamond, an emerald, a ruby, a sapphire. I can't wait to see. Open up your hands. Let's see what's inside." And she did. Inside her hands was a plain little bowl with a cover on it. The king took the bowl out of her hands. He took the cover off the bowl. He looked inside, expecting to see the sparkling jewel, but instead, all he saw was salt, regular old salt. Well, King Russell became very angry and insulted with this gift. He smashed the bowl on the ground, scattering the salt everywhere. Then he lost his temper completely. He pointed his finger and he yelled at Allison. "How dare you insult me with this gift of salt?" he cried. Keep yelling. "I asked for a precious gift and you give me salt? What kind of nonsense is this?" Allison begged her father, "Please, Dad, please, stop yelling at me. Let me explain. Salt is a precious gift." But Russell shook his head. "No, I'm so angry with you. I never want to see you again. Now go into the woods. Be off." Well, poor Allison ran into the woods. Around and around and around she ran. She didn't know where to go. Keep running. She didn't know what to do. She was so very upset. finally she just sat down right in the middle of the forest, crying into her hands, sobbing and sobbing. Well, the queen had gotten so upset, she had another coughing fit. Oh, she was terrible. The king patted her shoulder. Take it easy, dear, take it easy. The queen turned to the king. She begged him, oh, husband dear, you know how sick and weak I am. My 40th birthday is just 2 weeks away. The doctor said to keep me calm and quiet. You know it was wrong to send our daughter Allison into the woods. Please calm down and think of a way to find our daughter, please. And with that, she had to rest. Well, King Russell scratched his head and thought, what have I done? My wife is right. I should never have sent Allison into the woods all by herself. It is dangerous. I must find my beloved daughter. The king finally had a great idea. The king clapped 2 times. Knights, come quickly, men. The knights stood in front of the king. They bowed down to the king. Yes, your majesty, how can we serve you? The king said to his men, I want you to get on your horses and ride into the woods and find my daughter, Princess Allison. She's out there all by herself. Follow me. Go this way, guys. They got on their horses. Go. And off they galloped, around and around, searching high, searching low, searching everywhere for the missing princess. They searched all day long, but try as they might, don't step on her. They couldn't find her anywhere. Finally, they gave up. And they rode back to the castle, back to the waiting king. Oh, guys, when they got there, they got off their horses. They bowed down to the king. They shook their heads sadly. We're sorry, your majesty. We tried our best, but we could not find Princess Allison. Well, the king lost his temper. He pointed his sword at his men. He said, men, you have failed me. Now go back to your rooms before I chop off your heads. And the knights ran back to their places in the castle. The king scratched his head and thought some more. Now what am I going to do? Scratch, Russell, scratch. The knights couldn't find her. How will I ever find her? Suddenly he had another great idea. I've got it. The magician is here today with the crystal ball. The king clapped 2 times. Magician, come quickly, I need your help. The young magician bowed to the king. Yes, your majesty, how can I serve you? The king said, hold up that crystal ball. Rub that crystal ball. Find me a picture of where my daughter Allison has gone. The magician rubbed and rubbed the crystal ball, but try as he might, no picture would appear. The king became very impatient. He grabbed the crystal ball out of the magician's hands. Take it. He opened it up. He looked inside. No wonder this crystal ball's not working. You're out of batteries. Go get yourself some new batteries. I'll talk to you later. Here, take it. He gave the magician the crystal ball. The magician ran back to his place in the castle. The queen had another coughing fit. The king patted her on the shoulder and said, hang in there, dear, hang in there. I'll think of something, I know I will. I just don't have any ideas right now. And the king and the queen scratched their heads and thought, while poor Allison was all alone in the woods. She knew she couldn't stay there by herself any longer. It was getting late and she had to find a place to stay. Allison was slowly walking through the woods. She was getting hungry. Her stomach was growling. Rub your stomach. She was getting thirsty. Her throat was so dry. Turn around. She was getting tired. She was yawning and stretching. Oh, it was getting cold. She was shivering with the cold. Just then, a wicked witch came flying out of the woods. The witch flew over to the princess. She pointed her magic wand at the princess. The witch said, you are trespassing in my woods, dearie. The penalty for trespassing is death. I'm going to catch you and cook you up for dinner. That's what I'm going to do. Princess Allison screamed. Leave me alone. She ran from the witch. The witch chased her around and around. Allison kept screaming. Go away, please leave me alone. Finally, the witch had enough fun. She just laughed and flew back to the woods. Allison was shaking with fear. What was going to happen next? Well, luckily, 3 friendly forest animals came crawling and hopping over to her. They were her forest friends. Princess Allison patted them on their heads. Oh, dear friend, she said, you've got to help me. The king is very angry with me. He won't let me back into the castle. I don't have anywhere to live. A crazy old witch is after me. Can I live with you? They shook their heads. No, you're a princess. You wouldn't be happy where we live. But wait, we know of an innkeeper who needs a new cook. Maybe you could become the cook there at the inn. It'd be safe. Follow us. We'll take you there. They took Allison all the way to the inn. Oh, when they got there, the animals ran back to the woods, but Allison knocked on the door. The innkeeper opened the door. Allison curtsied to the innkeeper and said, how do you do? My name is Princess Allison. I hear that you need a new cook and I need a place to live. If you teach me how, I'm sure I'll be a fine cook for you, but don't tell anybody from the castle I'm here. The innkeeper shook her head. Okay, it's a good idea. I'm desperate for a new cook since my cook left town. We'll start your cooking lessons immediately. Let's go. They began cooking right away. Pretty soon, Allison became the most fantastic cook in the land, but nobody knew that the new cook at the inn was really the missing princess from the castle. 2 weeks had gone by. The queen was growing weaker and weaker. The very next day was her 40th birthday party. King Russell patted her on the shoulder and said, hang in there, dear. I'll call the woodsman. The king clapped 2 times. Woodsman, are you here? Just then, the woodsman had arrived delivering firewood for the fireplaces. He bowed to the king. What is it, your majesty? Do you need more firewood, he asked. The king shook his head no. No more firewood. But you're a man from the woods. I want you to lead my knights into the woods. Maybe then you'll be able to find my missing daughter, Princess Allison. I hope you can find her. Tomorrow's the queen's birthday. The woodsman went over to the knights. He said, men, get on your horses and follow me. Let's go. They got on their horses and off they galloped into the woods. Pretty soon, the wicked witch, you weren't done, witch, came flying out of the woods. The witch flew over to the men. She pointed her magic wand at them and said, stop! You're all in my woods and you're all in trouble! Oh yes, said the men. They were the ones with the weapons. Careful, you guys. They pointed the weapons at the wicked witch. When she saw those weapons pointing at her, she screamed and ran back to safety. Point your weapons down. Just then, the forest animals happened to be passing by. The men said to the animals, halt! We're searching for a princess named Allison. Have you seen her? They shook their heads. No princesses around here. Well then, said the knights and woodsmen, we're hungry. We've been traveling all day. Where can we get a good meal? The animals pointed. They said, go down the road. Half a mile, you'll come to an inn. We hear they have a good cook there. The animals went back to the woods where they lived. Put Allison in back of you. When they got there, go men, go. When they got there, to the inn, right here. They knocked on the door. Knock on the door. The innkeeper opened the door. The men bowed down to the innkeeper. How do you do, they said. We're searching for a princess. Her name is Allison. Have you seen her? Oh no, said the innkeeper. No princesses around here. She was protecting her new friend. Well then, said the knights and woodsmen, we're hungry and thirsty. Please get us something to eat and drink. The innkeeper said to the men, stay right there. I'll get you something from the kitchen. The innkeeper went back to the kitchen. Allison, don't show your face, she said. The knights and woodsmen are looking for you, but they're hungry and thirsty. Give me some of that roast beef and gravy. And come on, Allison, give the innkeeper the food. All the food and drinks you've prepared. The innkeeper came out. She served the men the food and the drinks. They ate and they drank. And when they finished, they said to the innkeeper, you've got the best cook in the land, innkeeper. Can we borrow your cook for the queen's 40th birthday party tomorrow? Yes, said the innkeeper, we'll be honored. Tell the king we'll come tonight when the inn closes. We'll cook all night long, we'll be ready. The men got on their horses and rode back to the castle as fast as they could. When they got there, they got off their horses. They bowed to the king. They shook their heads sadly. They said, we're sorry, your majesty, we tried, but we could not find your daughter. Please don't be angry with us. The king shrugged his shoulders and said, you tried, men. Go back to your places. I've got to give this matter some more thought. The king scratched his head and thought some more. Suddenly, he had another great idea. The magician is bound to know where she is. The king clapped 2 times. Magician, come quickly. Rub that crystal ball. I hope you have new batteries. Sure enough, a picture appeared. The king grabbed the crystal ball out of the magician's hands, expecting to see a picture of his lovely daughter, the princess. But instead, all he saw was kind of a cloudy picture of a cook of some kind. The king lost his temper again. He threw down the crystal ball. Luckily, it bounced. The magician picked up the crystal ball and ran from the angry king. The king didn't know what to do. The queen was coughing her head off again, and the very next day, queen, was her 40th birthday. The king said to everyone, especially the queen, everybody go to sleep, get a good night's sleep. Tomorrow's the queen's birthday. I hope she'll be all right. The king and queen and magician, knights and woodsmen all went to sleep, as did the other princesses. In the middle of the night, the cook and the innkeeper got on their horses, and rode straight to the castle kitchen, right here. Nobody saw them enter. Go, Allison, go. They cooked all night long in preparation for the queen's birthday party. By the time it was morning, the food was all prepared. Everyone woke up. They got dressed. The knights polished up their armor. The princesses fixed their hair and put on their makeup. The king would not be dancing since the queen was too weak to really be dancing, so he stayed with her by her throne. But he wanted his guests to have a good time. The king clapped his hands 2 times. Ladies and gentlemen, please enter the grand ballroom. King clap. The dancing's about to begin. The knights, all the men, and the princesses, and the animals, stand up, come join us, all began to dance around to the sounds of the most beautiful waltz music ever heard. They danced for hours and hours. The queen and king looked on, and the cook and innkeeper were busy in the kitchen. Finally, after about 3 or 4 hours of dancing, everybody was really hungry. The king clapped 2 times. Ladies and gentlemen, go back to your places. The food's about to be served, he said, but I must taste it first to make sure it's good enough for my honored guests to eat. The king clapped 2 times. He said, cook, please bring me the food. Excuse me, innkeeper, please bring me the food that your cook prepared. The innkeeper brought the food out in covered silver dishes and placed it in front of the king. He didn't touch it yet. The innkeeper went back to wait. Now, the king uncovered the first dish of food. He put his fork into the food. He put it in his mouth. He began to chew it up, and it tasted disgusting, and he spit it out. Yeah! Maybe it was just that one. I'll try another. He uncovered the next dish of food, took the cover off, put his fork in it, put it in his mouth, began to chew it up, made a face and spit it out. Yucko! Tastes like cardboard. Well, suddenly the king realized something was really wrong with the food, and he knew what it was. He started screaming, "Bring me the cook! Bring me the cook who cooked this food!" Well, the cook came out with her head bent down, so nobody could see who she was. Put your head down like that. Good. The king pointed his finger at her, and he yelled at her, and he said, "Cook, you have ruined the queen's birthday party. The food is absolutely tasteless. It tastes like cardboard or nothing at all. I think you left the salt out of each and every dish of food," he cried. "Don't you know how important salt is? It's a precious gift that we have, and just a little bit makes food special." Well, the cook had the nerve to answer the king. Still with her head bent down, the cook said in a small voice, "But your majesty, didn't you just send your daughter, Princess Allison, into the woods forever for giving you a gift of salt?" Well, King Russell realized his mistake. He said, "Oh, what a fool I was. I never should have sent her away. I was so wrong for doing that. I'd do anything to have her back." Then he said to the cook, "How do you know so much about what's going on in my kingdom? Who are you anyway?" Well, the cook looked straight up at the king. She took off her cook's hat. The king recognized her at once. He couldn't believe his eyes. He said, "Allison, is that really you?" He begged her forgiveness. "Oh, please forgive me, dear. I'm sorry for sending you away." Allison shook her head. "Yes, father, of course I'll forgive you." When the queen saw Allison standing there, she jumped up and ran over and hugged her daughter. "Oh, welcome home, dear. I was so worried about you." Oh, the queen turned to the king and said, "This is the best gift anyone could have ever given me." The queen turned to everyone and said, "Guess what? Since Allison returned, I'm cured. It must have just been allergies." This was the happiest day ever. Allison was back. The king had his lovely wife and daughter safe and sound. He announced to everyone, "Come into the grand ballroom. Stand up for this, everybody, king and queen included. King, queen, you're cured. Let's go." They all danced, go ahead, and partied and celebrated.